As a videographer, there aren't many feelings that rival the sense of accomplishment you get when you really nail a shot. And on the flip side, there's not really anything more disappointing than looking at the back of the camera after you've got what you thought was a cracking shot and it turns out to be garbage. But that's what this video is about. I'm gonna go through 5 mistakes to avoid. You know, these are mistakes I've made and I want you to learn from these mistakes so you don't make the same mistakes and have to go through the crappy feeling of thinking you've got a good shot and reviewing it afterwards only to find that it's not up to scratch. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so the first mistake that I make all the time, especially still in my YouTube videos, because I don't plan them out the same way I would a commercial shoot or something, where I've got a shot list, I know exactly what I want to get. With my YouTube videos, it tends to be a bit more fly by the seat of my pants, so I make this error all the time, and that is not shooting with the edit in mind. So either it's with B-roll sequences, maybe I'm doing like a whip pan or something, and I forget that the next shot needs to also follow that. So I'll whip out of one shot and then not whip up into the beginning of the next shot. Or perhaps I don't, if I'm shooting a shot that's meant to be in another sequence, like I made sure, because I'm talking about it, it's at the front of my mind, that when I entered this shot, I entered from this side of the frame, because I know I left the last shot here, so it's continuous. It means it's gonna look good when it gets edited back together. But if I was to then walk in from this side, it would have looked a bit more weird. It would have looked like it was trying to be one frame and I was in and out and in and out. It just wouldn't have gone as well. So making sure you shoot with the edit in mind before you press record, just remember what the intention is for that shot. So that's the first one. The second mistake that you want to avoid with videography is related to your white balance. Now, there's 2 main ways to do your white balance: automatic or manual. You either set it to auto, let the camera do it, or you manually dial it in. Now, you can kind of semi-manually do it in the fact that you've got, like, most cameras have got kind of programmed modes. So you've got daylight mode, shade, you know, fluorescent, tungsten, all these kinds of different lighting measures which have got values programmed in. So you can just kind of match it up to that. So that's kind of manual, but not really. Manual is actually taking a reading or knowing exactly what temperature bulbs you're using and setting it specifically to that one. And the mistake I want to talk about is, if you're setting it manually, make sure you then dial it back in between scenes. So many times I've seen footage taken, and I've also done it a couple of times myself, where I've manually dialed in my white balance for a specific environment, then moved either just somewhere else within the scene or moved somewhere different, or someone's brought a new light in and I've not adjusted it, and suddenly the clips don't match because the white balance is all off. So it's an easy mistake to make, but it's something that you'll be kicking yourself for in the edit. So white balance, always double check your white balance, make sure that it's consistent, make sure you're dialing it in properly. Okay, so while we're talking about mistakes which are effectively mistakes made by forgetting to do something, another one I made fairly recently, and is one you should definitely avoid, is double checking your audio level. Now, for a lot of the time we can get around this by monitoring and all that kind of stuff, but if you're not actively monitoring your audio, you might miss this. So a few weeks back I was recording some live music. I was watching a band, had everything rigged up, and to do that properly, I had my in-camera audio level set to like -20, almost as low as it would go. I have my Rode video mic on top, that was set to -20, and that was just so I wouldn't completely blow out the sound. It's obviously super loud when you're watching live music, so you need to try and make it as easy as possible for your camera to actually pick up some audio without it just completely blowing out. And that was great, worked really well. What didn't work quite so well was when I then went to use my camera again the following day, doing a talking head piece, and the audio level was still super low. So because I didn't check the levels, that first take was pretty much unusable. Because the audio, it was like not having any audio, going from what is essentially a super loud environment to a relatively quiet environment with just a single sound source. The microphone wasn't sensitive enough. So because I didn't check the levels, it was a mistake and it cost me. It only cost me time, but you know, sometimes you're not as fortunate. Sometimes you get one shot at something, and if you've missed it because, you know, your audio settings are still carried over from the night before or whenever you last shot, and it's not appropriate to what you're doing this time, then it's a mistake that's going to cost you. So yeah, that's one to avoid. In that same ballpark, another super easy to make, super easy to avoid mistake is if you've got a camera which has got both a microphone and a headphone port, make sure you plug in the microphone into the right one. It's happened to me before, not proud of it. Once I plugged the microphone into the headphone port, wondered why my audio was terrible. In fact, not even terrible, it was non-existent. Well, I say it was non-existent. It wasn't non-existent, it was just in camera audio, but when I tried to review it, there was no sound coming out because it was trying to use the microphone as headphones so I could review that sound. So I guess it was just in camera audio, which isn't the worst thing in the world. Definitely not an excuse not to shoot, but when you think you've got a dedicated microphone set up, especially for what you're trying to record, it's not what you want. And also if you're then trying to review that sound and expecting sound to come out of the camera because you've not got headphones plugged in and for some reason there is nothing coming out, it will throw you through a loop. So yeah, that's an easy one to avoid. Just double check you're getting it in the right hole. Okay, so the final mistake that you want to avoid is sitting down to edit without a bowl of cereal. It's a big mistake. You never want to do that. Okay, maybe that's not it. The mistake is, and again, quick one, simple one, but make it once and you'll probably never make it again. So hopefully this will save you that once. Sometimes it's tempting to, when you're moving files from your memory card onto your computer, it's tempting to cut rather than copy, because then takes it from the card, puts it on the computer, you don't have to worry about clearing your card afterwards. You can just put it straight back in the camera, job done, ready to go again. Now, I did that a few weeks back with some footage and it corrupted as it was moving. There was an error, the laptop crapped out, and whilst moving it from the card to the hard drive of the laptop, something went awry and yeah, it didn't happen. I looked at the files on the laptop. They were like part files, you couldn't open them, couldn't do anything with them. Looked at the files on the camera and it was the same. So I had no files. They had disappeared from both the memory card and the laptop, just because I was trying to do things quicker and more efficiently, but actually it just lost my footage. So don't risk it. It's not worth it. Don't cut, always copy. And hopefully you won't lose your footage. So yeah, that was 5 mistakes to avoid as videographers. Delicious but a bit soggy. Bonus tip: if you're going to use cereal as a prop in a video, do it quickly. So if you leave it sat on the side for quite a while, it turns into a bit more of a mush. Yeah. Thanks for watching. See you next week.